which is a panel discussion on which the panelists will share their views or experience on today's conference topic. For this session, Associate Professor Bhardipuri will be chairing the session, and we have other 7 panelists who are Mr. Vishnu Vijayan, Ms. Chiring Dolgar, Mr. Ujwal Patak, Ms. Drishti Sherawat, Mr. Stanzen Lotus, Mr. Mohammad Aswad Khan, Mr. Dawat Singh. Now I request our chairperson and panelists to please come on the dais and take your respective seats. Before I proceed, I would like to share a brief introduction of our chairperson. Associate Professor Bhardipuri she's from Department of Humanities and Social Science at Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, IIT Delhi. She has presented numerous papers at the international conference discussing about poetics and politics, difference in identity, literature, and history writing in the making, transmission of an idea called Tibet, religion, ideology, and utopia, theorizing violence and non-violence in France, Fanon, and Gandhi. Professor Bhardipuri has been invited for various national and international talks. Institute for International Relations, National Chengchi University has invited her in the year 2011 and 2012 for an international talk on religion in the public sphere of Taiwan, Indian tradition in modernity, sacred and the secular, etc. She is currently a visiting scholar at National Chengchi University and Tamkang University, Taipei, Taiwan. She is also a doctoral research fellowship at Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi. I now request Associate Professor Bhardipuri to kindly take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And as I stand here, I'd like to say how honored I feel to take a quantum leap from the time I was a small little child looking through a little hole in the wall of the Central School for Tibetan Children, wondering why they looked so happy. My father was in the secretariat and we would gallivant around the place. And it never occurred to me that time that I would then eventually meet Dawa Norbu, my supervisor, who would get a gallon of coffee on a Sunday and rubbish all the PhD drafts that I had made, only because he thought that there was a bigger and a more interesting journey. The journey still goes on as I now see a new harvest of very, very interesting young students, and it's just so nice to know that I will be chairing a session where there are these very ardent, very driven and very enthusiastic scholars. And there's Vishnu Vijayan, who's in his 3rd year of undergraduate studies studying physics at Hindu University at the University of Delhi. Ms. Chiring Dolgar, who has finished her graduation in life sciences from the University of Delhi in the year 2018. There's Mr. Ujwal Patak, who's woven together academic interests and his brilliance over very deep-rooted connections with Buddhist philosophy, and he has been reading a lot of science over his formative years. There's Miss Drishti Sehrawat, who has completed a high school education in Chalon Hills International School in 2021, and subsequently she is studying business admin from the Institute of Innovation, Technology and Management. And she would be graduating in 2024. Mr. Stanzen Lotus is with a bachelor's degree in BCom from the University of Delhi, and currently his interests in Buddhist studies have bloomed, as you can see, with his encounters with individuals, and you're so fortunate, who have shared their insights into various aspects of Buddha's teachings. He intends to pursue Buddhist studies, and he's pursued also graduation. He's done a postgraduate degree in MA Buddhist Studies from the University of Delhi. There are a diversity of concerns through which he looks, and it's really nice to have students with such a deep intention and interest in Buddhism. Mr. Muhammad Aswad Khan is currently a final year student pursuing BA Honours in Political Science at Galgotias University, and his academic journeys are very closely aligned to the principles which all of us really think are very valuable of selflessness and self-sufficiency and introspection and that he sees, in a sense, identified with concerns in Buddhist philosophy. He wishes to align himself with the true essence of Buddhist philosophy and engaging with the politics of emotion, involving interactions between people and a diversity of ministers and such public spheres. Looking forward to your work, Aswad. Mr. Dawa Sering is currently enrolled at the Indian Institute of Heritage, Noida. His primary objective is in attending this session is to gain a large, comprehensive understanding of philosophy of the esoteric Buddhism and its contemporary relevance. His intention is to, and he aspires to integrate principles of esoteric Tibetan Buddhism into his daily activities, and aims to apply these teachings as a means to facilitate his overall holistic development. It's a great honor to be sitting on with a variety of students who have such diverse concerns. And I would like to just give a little bit of my 2 bits on what is in this spectrum of looking at and trying to assimilate an understanding what is Buddhism or what is Buddha. I think in terms of really taking the concerns with a lot of philosophers, a lot of thinkers who have thought on Buddhist philosophy. We know that one way or the other Buddhism is and Buddha had always been, in a sense, modern. I'm not sure about modernist, but really modern. And in that sense, the whole idea of whether Buddhism is a speculative religion or is it really ethics, I think one way or the other, right from the beginning, from the time of its inception, there was an intention of both changing the world, but also being able to live in the world, which is a very important fact of our existence. And it's definitely not quietist in that sense, and my own work abuts on this idea of the engagement of Buddhism in a diversity of concerns and how. So in that sense, when we look at the world as an illusion, and in that sense we, in terms of really understanding a whole lot of concerns that have come up today, the boundedness by our own consciousness, which is in a sense, I'm not sure how would it really be partial, would it be inadequate in our explanation of what is Buddhism. And to that extent, when we we sometimes, and I think Professor Gill also made an observation in that sense, and through Nagarjun, also to look at that aspect of consciousness, when we look at it as reality, we are kind of falling victim to a kind of an illusion. And that beautiful poetry that was read out, that is it us who are in the passing, I think, the whole idea of change in the world, that and the idea that one way or the other, we are also getting changed by it, is a dynamic in which we live. And I think no other times than now, when we are talking about AI, when we are talking about a diverse range of things here. And in that sense, it looks like a process which is almost automatic, but is it not, is a big question. But considering that these causes and these consequences which come from our acts, from our own actions, if we really kind of make a choice of filtering out from that idea of stream of consciousness, and we think of how we need to traverse through our own selfish urges, which are our own very hurtful sometimes, and how do we really do all of that? And I think one of the things which is probably the most sublime thing in Buddhism is that when we do this, we are not only for ourselves but for the world also. We are filtering a little bit of the hurt and the harm that we have always with us, because we are agencies of change and we are shades of grey which we don't ourselves recognize ever. But we also know that within the ambit of Buddhism, Buddhists have fought wars. It's not like as if, there's a lot of soul searching that needs to happen. But on the whole, when you look at that perspective, there's very little harm, so to speak, that Buddhism has done, or that the world has, felt that. So it's not about redeeming any sort of religion or thought. But I think as students, I think what really merits our attention is that it really takes you towards critical consciousness. It takes you towards critical thinking. It takes you to that, what is beneath the meaning of meanings. What is it that is actually in terms of the dominant myths that we live by? What is it that are there in terms of the impressions we have? Do we always live by official pronouncements? Do we stand up and say, I respect you, but could I ask a question here? Do we question, those are very important concerns. Do we just go by traditional cliches and, Buddhism has adapted? So how do we interpret that? And also the root causes of a lot of concerns of social context, of ideologies, and also of personal consequences that we have when we, refer to any constructs. And there's this very interesting thinker called Paulo Freire who talks about he indicates the process of what is analytical, or what is the how does an individual in a sense or a community acquire critical consciousness. And he says it's by becoming aware of one's own context and identity, and after that an individual begins to perceive the social and political contradictions of their own worlds. And I think one of the most important things which I possibly learned at across the table from Dava Norbu about, in terms of pedagogies as choices that we make. Do I choose as a philosopher trained to also look at a concern which is Tibet, which is grounded in my understanding of what could be ethics, what could be looking at environment. Also to discernibly look at it critically, not simply as somebody. So I think the critical friend, the friend who critiques, is a true friend. So in a sense, not just simply from that perspective that I need to lay out parameters in Buddhist thought, but to really, I think, and that is what hermeneutics did to Christianity in a sense, to bring out the idea of, interpreting texts. So transmission of knowledge, I think, needs to be perpetuated, in a sense, supported. But I think it's not about status quo, and we know Buddhism has dismantled that and has taken up that challenge big way, because it adhered to a different set of scholars, but scholars also constantly moved with it. And I think not taking stands in that sense is almost like being conformist. And I think, luckily, when you look at Buddhist texts, they don't even ascribe you to become like that. But one of the things which, as some of you are Tibetans here, Tibetan scholars, I think the idea of language and power, which I think is a way of accentuating your thinking, and in terms of what is, again, Paulo Freire comes up with, when he puts the question of legitimacy. And he says, why do we associate, legitimate knowledge with certain symbols? And why is this knowledge, in a sense, about our collective imagination? And when we look at, for example, professors in dark suits teaching about something on Brazil, but an indigenous woman cannot. So what does it tell you? It tells you about the shells of power. It also tells you, in a sense, what comes to us through thinkers about showing truth to power. So I think the impossible has to be reached through our teaching. And we have to, he proposes that in his valuable concerns with language and about dominant cultures, and how he says that you have to express yourself, you have to be able to express yourself in what is considered the legitimate way, and to articulate the thoughts that will serve, in a sense, to bring out more, different interpretations could be made for liberation, but I think the most beautiful of the understanding one gets is of Paiko Iyer, who talks about the boundaries of life that are responsible for the beauty of life. And in his episode where he talks about travel, where he discusses that as people we become something, the whole idea of becoming and being, we become when we travel. And the whole idea that, especially referring to an age of technology, when, there's the whole, he uses the idea of the ping pong for our own lives, that we are here and there everywhere, the ping pong as a metaphor for life. And most importantly, which comes to us through Buddhism, the importance of and the significance of impermanence, and and against that idea of being and versus becoming, or being and becoming, whichever way we want to look at. Now, really, this question did come up, and forgive me for being I wouldn't be able to, but it's just something that struck. I wouldn't take more than a minute. It struck me when I was listening to the scholars' very interesting papers. And when we're looking at this ontology of, being and becoming, I think of this very interesting prayer that His Holiness the Dalai Lama says is his favorite, and I find it extremely interesting and nice. He says, as long as space, yes, thank you so much. For as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, until then, may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. I think this is a quantum, and there's it's a lot of interest in quantum mechanics. So this is a quantum worldview, and I was wondering whether Dr. Ragpa's insight into this could help us to see if this is a window to the worldview. And if the probability of dependent origination actually is a kind of a congruent to explain our fragile existence in this connect. I think there's a lot that is going to happen with our young scholars. Each one of you gets 7 minutes. I have already got, I hope I've tagged time. But thank you so much for listening to my half-baked, but then Geshe-la wanted me to speak from the first-person perspective. I hope, it made some sense. Thank you so much. So I'd like to call Mr. Stanzen Lotus to start his paper, and or your comments. You get 7 minutes each. Thank you.
Respected venerables, guest speakers, and my dear friends, a very good afternoon. I want to express my gratitude to Geshe-la and Tibet House for giving me an opportunity to share my experience on this conference. I would like to begin my presentation by highlighting the purpose of knowing the main theme of this conference, that is ontological reality. From the Buddhist perspective, it is mainly to get rid of all the miseries and to achieve maximum happiness or lasting happiness. And from the quantum physics, it is mainly to achieve a better understanding in the development of physical matter. We see that Buddhist philosophy is mainly focused on subjectivity, that is, transforming the mind. But science focus is more on objectivity, that is, the development of material world. In the inaugural session, Venerable Geshe Ngamang Samtila clearly mentioned that we have to know how to bridge the gap between the reality and perception. By understanding the reality, we can change our perception. As a Buddhist studies research scholar, I aspire to do comparative studies, but today I will talk about the topic more from the Buddhist perspective. So the happiness we seek in mundane life is not stable and lasting. But if we want a lasting happiness, we need to change our perception, because we have a misconception towards all phenomena that things truly exist. And to change our perception, firstly, we need to know what exactly ontological reality is. Ontological reality in Buddhist philosophy means to understand the nature of phenomena through analyzing it on a subtle level. The more we go closer towards an object, the more we can understand its nature. Buddhist philosophy describes the ontological reality or ultimate reality through the doctrine of emptiness. When I came across the word emptiness for the first time, emptiness in Sanskrit known as shunyata, I assumed it is as something literally empty, where there is nothing. If something is empty, it possesses nothing, as in an empty cup. Such an idea of emptiness as nothingness is common, and I understood in the same manner. However, emptiness in Buddhist philosophy has nothing to do with nothingness. As an individual who holds such a view that emptiness to mean nothingness falls directly into the state of nihilism. Emptiness' main concept is to draw attention towards dependent arising of all composite phenomena. It describes how things come into existence, how things are not independent, and how things have no inherent nature. Different Buddhist schools have different approaches in teaching the nuances of ontological reality. During the first session, Venerable Puja Daprala mentioned that except for all four major Buddhist schools, it is only Prasangika Madhyamika of Madhyamika school which refutes the existence of intrinsic nature of phenomena. But this does not mean that they reject objective existence. They say things do exist but do not possess intrinsic nature. We learn from the Buddha's teachings that our afflictive emotions such as attachment, jealousy, anger, and so forth are triggered by mental perception, which is always under the influence of ignorance. Due to this, we see things as truly existent, and then grasping arises. A famous verse from the text Mulya Madhyamika Karika by Arya Nagarjuna says that ceasing of karmas and afflictions leads to nirvana. Karmas and afflictions arise from conceptual thought. They arise from mental elaboration. Elaboration ceases by emptiness. If an object is appealing, affliction of attachment arises. Whereas an object being repulsive, affliction of hatred arises. If the mind is not inclined towards either, it is of ignorance nature. All the afflictions can only cease if ignorance is eliminated from its root. Therefore, it is only through the wisdom of emptiness that one can eliminate the affliction of ignorance. Just like a child who wishes to go closer towards a rainbow and touch it, by reaching closer, it disappears. I learned that it is only by crossing the border of conventional reality one can understand the nature of phenomena ultimately. Likewise, if we try to analyze the ontological reality of things in life, we can get rid of all the miseries and achieve lasting happiness. In the morning, during the keynote speech addressed by Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdula, he mentioned that one should try to see the ontological reality to the most subtle level, to wake up fully and stop the tears of miseries. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you so much.
I'd like to invite Mr. Muhammad Aswad Khan to make his comments, please.
Good evening, first of all, to everyone. Honorable Jishala and respected moderator Tenzin, sir, Chairperson Bharti Puri ma'am, and my fellow panelists. Here I am standing as a Buddhist philosophy student, you may also call me, because I've been attending these sessions, these conferences from last 3 conferences. So beginning with the first time, my experience on this panelist platform is very enthusiastic. Like, I want to say everything, but I have a limited time. So I would begin now. Leading to more holistic and compassionate view. Now what I came across about this conference on time subtle and the conference of gross matter and ontological reality. As we all know, the idea of atoms and dharmas in Buddhist philosophy or terminology has been a part of Buddhist philosophy for centuries. Likewise, Abhidharma, school of Buddhism, one of the major Buddhist traditions, have been followed from there, and a developed detailed system of the classification for this ultimate truth, to find out the soul, to find out the truthness. I came across with many of the dynamics for today's conference. I gained many deeper insights on this conference, interconnectedness of all the things and the illusory nature of self and the role of consciousness in shaping our perception in reality. This insight can guide us and many more people with a mindfulness of compassion, being compassionate and fulfilling the existence. Now, first talking about the ontological reality, as said by G. She Dorji Damdullah, that we have two truths, that is conventional truth, and second one is ultimate truth. Talking about the conventional truth, which analyzes what our mind retains, and second world ultimate truth, in which we have to gain the retentions to our ultimate analysis. And comparing electrons, they are in a level of conventional level of more electrons to be discovered, and their behavior we analyze as it to go deeper with the studies. Now when we talk about the quantum physics, we have a profound impact on our present lives, like fields such as medicine, technology and communication, as said by Dr. Utkarsh Mishra sir. Now, taking forward, while quantum mechanism delivers into the mysteries of physical world of subatomic level, and Buddhist philosophy explores the nature of that reality. Beginning with the understanding of the atoms, as said by our inaugural sessions, solid, unchanging entities, but rather it is an interconnection between the soul and the phenomena in which we are going through. The Buddhist concept on this of emptiness further challenges our assumptions about reality, suggesting that atoms and all the other phenomena lack inheritance, self-existent. This implies that a deeper reality lies beyond our limited perceptions, that our understanding of our universe is constantly evolving, which emphasizes our in perception, shunyata, emptiness, vijnana, consciousness, and samyukta, that is the interconnectedness. Buddhist philosophy can mutually illuminate each other with the quantum physics, providing empirical support to all the fellow beings and all the concept of that philosophy. Now coming to my speech end, that is wrapping up this information which I gained today in the conference of atomic physics and Buddhist philosophy, offers a fascinating thought of oneself and a provoking exploration of the nature of reality to gain the reality to itself, to for the soul and for the people of going good with the selflessness. As we came up with the two truths, in shaping our perception, we can move beyond with the conventional views and embrace a more advanced and a holistic understanding by our soul to this universe. From the book, The Universe in a Single Atom, by His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, messages ourselves that oneness and interconnectedness is not only a philosophical concept, but also a concept of action. He encouraged us to recognize our shared humanity and to work together to create a more just and peaceful and sustainable world. Thank you so much.
I call upon Mr. Dawa Sering to make his comments.
Good evening, everyone. As a student of history of art, I have tried to understand Buddhism through visual text in the form of art, such as painting, sculpture. Today's conference, delving into the intersection of science and philosophy, proved both intriguing and challenging for me. I find myself lagging behind almost all the time. It also reminds me of one of my aesthetics class when my teacher used to say in the class, some students see wonder happens, others wonder what happened. Since I neither come from science background and philosophical background, so today I will share my experience broadly and widely. The philosophical doctrine posits that nothing exists independently, rather every phenomena is intricately interwoven and contingent upon the existence of everything else, elucidating the intricate web of interrelatedness that governs the universe. The principle emphasizes that the existence and manifestation of all phenomena depend on the multifaceted interdependency. In essence, at the core of our being, science and religion converge harmoniously, transcending apparent disparities. The intersection of science and religion should be marked by harmony rather than the conflict, as the emphasis on reason, logic, and fundamental principles of cause and effect seamlessly align with empirical and rational foundation. So today's conference welcomes a confluence of scientific understanding and philosophical insight. The conference like these stand out as a possible mediator, as both science and religion ultimately aim to improve the well-being of all sentient beings, which promotes inner peace, joy, and harmony by combining wisdom akin to scientific inquiry with compassion reflecting ethical and moral values commonly linked with religious and spiritual beliefs. This perspective suggests that the wisdom and compassion should be seen as mutually supportive elements crucial for navigating the complex interconnectedness of our world, advocating for the integration of scientific knowledge based on reason and evidence with a moral and ethical guidance from religious principle to form a comprehensive solution to global challenges. This fusion resembles a symbiotic relationship, envisions a harmonious coexistence wherein scientific progress is not separated from ethical consideration but is guided by the compass of compassion. In this comprehensive approach, individuals and societies are urged to appreciate the intrinsic value of scientific advancement while also recognizing the essential role of ethical consideration and compassion in guiding the application of such knowledge for the collective betterment of humanity. This holistic perspective advocates for nuanced understanding that goes beyond the surface level dichotomy between science and religion, suggesting that their convergence can generate a synergistic and transformative force capable of addressing the diverse challenges faces our shared global existence. So I finally express my gratitude to Tibet House for providing the opportunity to participate in this enlightening conference, emphasizing the significance of dialogue and collaboration of fostering a more integrated and harmonious world. I thank you all.
I'd like to invite Mr. Vishnu Vijaya to make his comments, please.
Distinguished speakers, respected representatives of Tibet House, and dear fellow panel members, good evening to all. It's a great honor for me to be here. As an aspiring quantum cosmologist, it gives me immense pleasure to share my views on philosophical aspects of quantum physics. So first, I will shed light on what made me interested in the particular topic of quantum physics and how it's interlinked to philosophy. So my basic interest lies on this field called quantum cosmology, which describes the cosmology, which tries to describe the cosmology using quantum scale. So I just wanted to answer the fundamental question of what exactly we are. And that cannot be done with the help of science only. So we need a philosophical approach for that. So that's the primary reason for me to choose this field. So let me dive into my talk. And what I will be doing will be just a summary of what is happening from morning. So it will be some point might be repetitive, and I think I will provide some new inputs which will be from my side, and I'm subject to correction. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not an expert in either of these subjects. So yeah, so I am trying to explain few things like consciousness, philosophy in quantum mechanics, and reality, what exactly is reality according to my perspective, and some quantum mechanical stuff like entanglement. So in physics, how does philosophy come in? Both are actually looking on a larger scale, both are very independent subjects, and how these are interlinked in fields like quantum mechanics. So how does that actually happen? So when we do the physics, it's an often common saying, and it's the truth, mathematics is the silent language that universe speaks, and it's a key for physicists. So when we dig upon mathematics to understand the quantum world or even the cosmology, so we land upon results which are very counterintuitive. And giving physical interpretation to those mathematical results give rise to philosophy, that it's highly counterintuitive, and we need philosophy to describe that. So physics is simply the study of nature, and quantum physics in particular is the most counterintuitive branch of physics. And it explores the laws governing the subatomic world, and most often the physical interpretation of quantum theories are highly philosophical. I will give an example, which is a Oppenheimer interpretation by Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, and Max Born. We can describe them as the founders of quantum mechanics, or the pioneers in that field in around 1920s. So they were, it was it can be described as the best time to be alive. So there was a huge debate going on between them and Einstein. So we are not still sure who won the debate. So yeah, that's the Oppenheimer interpretation. That's the primary point where I begin. So from that I will dive into what consciousness really is. So in Cosmos, it's one of the finest works of Carl Sagan. You can describe him as a cosmologist. He quoted, "With time, matter evolved into consciousness." And consciousness is something both science and philosophy is trying to understand. So this overlap between science, particularly quantum physics, and philosophy fascinates me the most. I found quite two interesting things were Buddhist philosophy and physics, both interlinked. As a matter of fact, any philosophy and physics both are interlinked in two things. First of all, Buddhist philosophy is a way of understanding the world and our place in it. It's based on the idea that everything is interconnected and that there is no such thing as a separate self. This is a point where physics and Buddhist philosophy overlaps the most, that both describes the fundamental unity of all things. And when we dig deep into physics, then that's the point that we land upon. It describes that everything is united. And let me go to the philosophy in quantum mechanics. So the highly philosophical nature of quantum mechanics or quantum physics was revealed many decades back, exactly around 1920s or 1930s, when fields started evolving from fundamental experiments which happened around 2 centuries ago. I will give an example. Most of you might be aware of that. It's the YDSE, or Young's double slit experiment. So that led to the the starting point of the evolution of quantum physics. So the actual experiment happened in 1801. Sorry for being a little bit technical, but yeah, it started in 1801, but there was a slight modification which the physicists did. Actually, it happened in around 1961. They used electrons in place of photons, and they landed upon some very interesting results. Like by that time, like de Broglie proposed that every matter will have their own wavelength. So in 1801, we knew that interference happens with light waves or other electromagnetic radiation, and which gives give rise to optical phenomena like interference, diffraction, and so on. But this was surprising with the we discovered. Yeah, thank you. We discovered the same phenomena with electrons, and we landed upon the most confusing conclusion that even electrons are self-aware, or we landed up in the conclusion that the consciousness, landed upon things like quantum consciousness and observer effect. Observer effect basically means when we observe something, it changes the reality. So there I would like to shed a light upon what reality really means. So when we in quantum mechanics, we often speak about wave functions and everything. So wave functions is just like the amplitude of de Broglie waves. So in reality, reality in physics is what we observe or what we perceive. But the act of observation can itself alter reality. So this is a counterintuitive thing in quantum physics. And it also poses other philosophical arguments, such as future is predetermined and possibility of quantum consciousness and everything. So then we have a quite interesting discussion about time. Is it absolute or relative? When we talk about relativity and everything, it is relative, but quantum physics deals with the absolute picture of time. So yeah. And in entanglement also, it's also a highly philosophical thing, like even if two interconnected particles, or the quantum state of each particle of group cannot be described independently on the state of the other, including when the particles are separated by a large distance. Even if they are not connected, somehow they align opposite. If one spin is up, the other spin is down. So this makes me happy to conclude my speech, that I am very happy to see both science and philosophy merge together. And this is my personal belief that there are some aspects in science which the fundamental principle of all science is to explain the universe or explain what we are. So there are many aspects in science without which, without philosophy, we could not achieve the ultimate result that you are looking, like the unified field theory or field theory of everything. So I think philosophy and science should work together for the benefit of humanity. And this is my first conference attending, and it was a great experience. And I will end my talk by quoting from Sri Buddha, like, there is no wealth like knowledge and no poverty like ignorance. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vishnu, and the rest of you. Sorry, I should have been less rude. I didn't remember to thank, but I would ask Ms. Sering Dolkar to please give her comments now. Thanks.
Gangi tuksenge sune tawa thamche pang peche dampe chuni tunza pe kotam de la chasalo. Thank you, Professor Bhatiji. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to pay my gratitude to Venerable Geshe-la and Tibet House for giving me the opportunity to share my experience related to today's conference. I feel honored to be part of this conference. From His Holiness' book Beyond Religion, when I first learned about emotions and ways of regulating the emotions, it introduced me to universal compassion and oneness of all human beings. It opened my eyes to look at the world in a broader perspective. As a human beings, we are all same. We all want happiness and do not want suffering, which Venerable Geshe-la and other scholars have already enlightened us. And delving more deeply into Buddhist philosophy, psychology, logic, epistemology at Nalinda Master's course offered by Tibet House, it has unfolded many layers of convergence and divergence between science and Buddhist philosophy. Both Buddhist philosophy and science have been developed for the well-being of human beings. But the difference is seen in the goal. Science delves in the development of external objects and Buddhist philosophy in the development of internal mind. Today, due to the kindness of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and programs such as organized by Tibet House, there have been dialogues between science and Buddhist philosophy where to jointly contribute to the welfare of humanity. Buddhist philosophy explores different levels of reality, manifest phenomena, slightly hidden phenomena, and very hidden phenomena. On the contrary, physics or modern science in general explores the manifest and some part of slightly hidden phenomena. As a student of Buddhist philosophy, it is intriguing to see the converging point of science and Buddhist philosophy, as Buddhism is seen as a science which can be accepted whether you are a follower of Buddhism or not. The final liberating path known as wisdom of emptiness in Buddhist philosophy, which espouses that conventionalities come into being through dependent origination of mere labeling. This is the key to explanation of subtle phenomena which is yet to be seen in the understanding of modern science. As physics, we know the scientific study of matter, energy, and fundamental forces that govern the universe. It seems to explain the nature of reality through empirical observation, experimentation, and the formulation of mathematical models. On the other hand, Buddhist philosophy, particularly Arya Nagarjuna's, delves into the nature of existence, consciousness, and path to liberation from suffering. With today's conference, slight glance we have is that one grounded in empirical inquiry and other in contemplative introspection. However, as we explore the depth of both, we find the intriguing points of convergence. It is interesting to hear from Venerable Dr. Puja about the concept of emptiness. A phenomena lacking inherent existence can be aligning with some principle of modern physics, especially within the framework of quantum mechanics. As in the quantum world, particles don't have fixed properties until observed, and their existence is probabilistic rather than deterministic. This uncertainty echoes Arya Nagarjuna's assertion that nothing possesses self-existent intrinsic nature, but still lot to explore to observe the deeper meanings. As I mentioned already, divergence that primarily we can observe between the two disciplines is that physics tends to focus on external, objective reality, seeking into understanding the mechanics of the universe. In contrast, Arya Nagarjuna's assertion that nothing possesses self-existent, intrinsic nature, but still lot to explore to observe the deeper meanings. In the conclusion, the convergence and divergence of physics and Buddhist philosophy offers fascinating exploration of the nature of reality. As we continue to advance in both scientific and philosophical understanding, perhaps we will find even deeper connection that illuminates the profound mysteries of our existence. The dialogues between such disciplines organized by Tibet House invites us to transcend the boundaries of our current understanding and embark on the journey towards a more holistic comprehension of the universe and our place within it, especially to learn ontological reality of external phenomena can affect our internal state of emotions in today's world. Once again, I want to deeply express my gratitude to Tibet House, Venerable Geshe-la, and staff for the bringing such conferences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tsering Dolkar. I'd invite Mr. Ujjwal Pathak to give his comments.
So it's been a long day and only brave one of us have stayed, I think. So a great philosopher, Socrates, once said, "I know that I know nothing." His Holiness the Dalai Lama was once asked, "What would you do if science disproves your religious beliefs?" He said, "I would read all the evidence and will really try to understand them, and in the end, if it was clear and proved right, I would change my spiritual beliefs." Good evening, everyone. My name is Ujjwal Pathak. I'm an undergrad student of political science. And since most of the things are already said from the morning, I'll just try to express my own views of what I've understood from the morning. So, time is funny, isn't it? It's like the elusive trickster. It's like the last piece of chocolate in the box that we always try to grab, but it always slips through our fingers. If only we could put time on a leash, take it for a walk, maybe even teach it a trick or two. But time has a mind of its own, and no amount of pleading or negotiation seems to alter its relentless march. In the grand tapestry of existence, time weaves a story that encompasses the subtle and the gross, the seen and the unseen, much like the dance of subatomic particles in the vast cosmic ballet. Now, quantum physics, where particles are like teenagers at a party, simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. It's like a universe decided to throw a surprise party, and the particles are the guests who show up at multiple locations at once. If Schrodinger had a cat at this party, I imagine it would be both alive and playing the piano simultaneously. Quantum physics, where reality is a kaleidoscope and we are just trying to catch a glimpse of the cosmic disco. It challenges our understanding of the tangible and the intangible, much like the teaching of Buddhism that challenge our perception of self and existence. It's as the universe itself is playing a cosmic game of hide and seek, inviting us to question the very nature of our own reality. Born in Kushinagar, where the air is thick with spirituality and the Wi-Fi is weak, I've always felt a personal connection to these teachings. The connection between Kushinagar and Buddhism is not just historical, it's a cosmic contract that binds us to eternal dance of enlightenment. Being with the monks, I always used to play with them, I always used to question them and the science both. And I think Tibet House in this regard, through this various conferences, has helped me in answering my own questions. Now, Buddhist philosophy in its profound insights suggests that reality is not fixed, objective entity, but rather a subjective experience shaped by our own minds. This concept of dependent origination or highlights the interconnectedness of all things, suggesting that nothing exists in isolation. There is a concept of emptiness or shunyata, as we say in Sanskrit, that finds resonance with the quantum view of reality as a field of infinite potential. According to Buddhist teachings, our perception of reality is distorted by our own biases and attachments. We cling to the things as being permanent and self-existence, leading to suffering and dissatisfaction. True liberation only comes from understanding the true nature of reality, recognizing the impermanence and emptiness of all things. Now, if we see the two words, subtle and gross matter, as far as I know, the specific usage of these terms in the context of modern science can be traced back to 17th century. In 1687, Isaac Newton wrote a book, Principia Mathematica, where he wrote about the distinction between gross matter and subtle matter, which he called ether. Newton believed that ether was a fluid substance that filled the universe and mediated gravitational and other forces. Whereas if you see in Buddhism, gross matter is also known as Roop. Subtle matter is known as Nam. In Buddhism, the cycle of rebirth or samsara is driven by the interaction between gross matter and subtle matter. Our actions, karma, in the gross material would create imprints on our subtle matter, which is consciousness, which then determine our future rebirth. What I'm trying to say is the things which we are finding now by spending billions and billions of dollars have long been known in the Buddhist philosophy. Now imagine a tree falling in a forest with no one around to hear it. Does it still make a sound? From an ontological perspective, the tree's existence is independent of human observation. It falls and the sound waves propagates through the air, regardless of whether someone is there to listen. Now consider this another statement. The apple is red. The apple's existence is independent of our perception of its redness. The apple is still red even if we are colorblind or in a dark room. The color red is an ontological reality that exists independently of our perception. This is related to again the concept of emptiness or shunyata. The Buddhist understanding of ontological reality is complex and nuanced. There's this book, Ontological Reality, Quantum Theory and Emptiness in the Buddhist Philosophy, which is written by none other than our own Geshe-la. And it challenges our conventional notions of reality and suggests a more fluid, interconnectedness and interdependent view of the world. While it may seem counterintuitive at first, this view can lead to a deeper understanding of ourselves, the world, and our place in it. The parallels between quantum physics and Buddhist philosophy offer a fascinating glimpse into the convergence of science and spirituality. While they may approach the ultimate mysteries of existence from different perspectives, they both point towards a reality that is far more profound and interconnected than we may ever imagined. So let's embrace the paradoxes of time, dance with the quirkiness of quantum physics, ponder the mystery of reality, and absorb the timeless teachings of Buddhism. As we navigate this cosmic carnival, let's remember to savor the laughter, cherish the wisdom, and enjoy the cosmic rollercoaster ride. May our journey through the mysteries of time be filled with joy, insight, and sprinkle of stardust. Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank you so much, Ujjwal. That was so beautiful poetically. Miss Drishti Sehrawat, you're next in line. Thanks.
Before beginning with my share of experiences, I would like to thank my teacher, Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdullah, and Tibet House for giving this opportunity to me. And I would like to pay my respect to the honorable guest, Venerable Professor Geshe Samtinla, and all the audience who are here offline as well as online. Before actually sharing my own experiences, I would like to share what I learned from the conference. Even though quantum physics is something which didn't go in my mind and just went over my head, still there were some things which are actually related from what my teacher taught during the retreats I attended. So there's this one question. When I was in Tushita, I attended one of the Nalanda Master's courses classes. The students were putting up some questions, and there was this one question wherein someone was talking about partless particle, and it said that the partless particle, as mentioned by Venerable Pujala in her speech, was that it exists independently. But from what I learned from my teacher and from what the four seals of the Buddha states, that all composite things are impermanent, all contaminated things are the nature of suffering. Everything is of the nature of emptiness and selflessness, transcending sorrow is peace. The third seal of the Buddha's teaching states that everything exists with dependent origination. But the partless particle, which was stated in that question, was saying that it exists independently. So I was very much in confusion with this question. Then I asked someone in the retreat, and that person told me that this was according to the Vaibhashika school. So I still wasn't convinced why Mahayana school is actually not stating that it exists independently. Then today in the conference, when Venerable Pujara said that, she explained it very well, and I was so much intrigued by how she explained it, that if the center of the particle is partless particle, then the particle will meet the particles in the north and the south. The same side of the particle will meet the particles in the north and the south. Then there will be no center particle. So therefore the center particle wouldn't exist. So I was so intrigued by this. And there was this one more thing told by one of the professors on atoms. When we come to this world, our body is formed with the atoms. And when we grow, more and more atoms combine in our body, which comes from the waters, from the water we drink, from the food we eat. And then when we die, the atoms dissolve within this planet itself. We don't carry the atoms with ourselves. We are just, formed with the atoms. This was also one thing which actually was very intriguing for me. Now, now from what I learned in Buddhist philosophy, I have not learned much from Buddhist philosophy. All I have attended some systematic teachings. I have a lot, and I need to learn more about Buddhist philosophy. There are many years and years I need to study in order to actually say that I have some realization. But there are some things which I learned from Buddhist philosophy which helped me with my day-to-day life. I feel like as a student, we are very pressured to get good grades, have high earning income, great careers, and many more. We have to compete with each other, and this competition doesn't stop. We compete in school for good grades. We compete for good colleges. When we start earning, we compete with our co-workers in order to prove ourselves and earn a promotion. And this is like how our majority of our life goes by, in the competition. Majorly, we are always taught how to deal with the outside world, how to get high income jobs, how to succeed in a startup, how to be good at managing finance, because that is very essential for a company. This is what I have experienced myself and seen others experience throughout my student life. What I want to say is that we need to know and learn how to deal with the external world. But most importantly, we need to also learn how to deal with our inner self, how to deal with our emotions. As we are growing up as students, our hormonal changes are increasing, and we don't know how to deal with the anger we have on our parents just because they tell something which is good for us, but we believe it is not. I got my personal experience is that I get very nervous when I have to speak. And I feel like this is what everybody would be noticing while I'm standing here. So even when I have to speak in front of my classmates, which I know from the past 2 years, I get very nervous. At the beginning, I used to get nervous to an extent that my body had zero energy. I was shivering and everything. I tried to, resist it. I tried to help myself with it, but wasn't able to do anything. Then as the time went by, I started learning Buddhist philosophy systematically with the help of my teacher, Venerable Gishidhar Jidamdullah. And so I was actually able to help myself with this nervousness. The reason why I'm standing here and not shivering. So how did I do that? I learned about the reasons why we experience emotions like nervousness and fear. I learned that we and others are not independently existing. These emotions which we experience, such as nervousness and fear, are also dependent on various factors. And if we tackle those factors, then we can actually help ourselves with this nervousness and fear. I learned that how our mind creates delusions, like making us believe that other people will laugh at me if I'm not saying good stuff. They will criticize me if I don't have much knowledge. And what if they don't like me at all? I'm pretty sure people here wouldn't say that, but out there when I'm in a student life, the students of my age make fun of others just because they don't have much knowledge. So I deal with this by again and again reminding myself that the situation which my mind is making me believe in has not happened at all. I'm not perfect. No one is. How good my presentation will be is completely dependent on how much knowledge I have about the topic, how my physical strength is at that time, how my mental state is at that time, and especially how much interest I have in that particular topic. It is dependent upon all these factors and many other factors. They all together make me present, whether it is good or bad. I was able to do this by the constant reminders. It didn't happen like I learned Buddhist philosophy and I just implemented in my life. It didn't happen that way. Even now, I still have to work a lot on this. It happened by the constant reminders I gave myself. Even when I'm not feeling the nervousness or fear, we have to give ourselves those reminders of how we need to focus on the causes and not on what we are perceiving. I tried to meditate on these. I tried to see how my nervousness was triggered actually. We need to generate constant awareness of not just what is happening around us in the world, but also inside us. This is something which we all know, but still we cannot help ourselves when we are in the situations. So there's this one verse of many taught by the Blessed One on dependent arising. All phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of causes as well is taught by the Great Seer. If we focus on how the outcomes we perceive and see are entirely dependent on its causes, we focus on the causes or reasons for the phenomena to exist in a certain way. Then and only then we can tackle our all unwanted emotions easily. Just like a person can perceive a rope lying on the floor as a snake, and a person who knows that rope will not have the fear as the person who thinks that the rope is a snake. It all depends on our perception. So, similarly, when I believe that, what am I going to do in the presentation, how other people will think about me, and I believe all these factors to be the truth, then I will actually feel the fear. But someone who is more experienced in these things will not actually have the fear or nervousness while standing here and speaking. For example, my teacher Venerable Kashidhar Jadaundullah. All I want to say is that if we actually learn about how the mind is working, how we are experiencing, and go to the reasons of how we actually are suffering with the unwanted emotions, then and then only we can actually help ourselves, and then only we can tame our mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Drishti. Am I allowed to make my comments from here? Okay, I just have to get. Thank you so much for sharing this, which has been a very transformative opportunity for many of us, and some of us haven't. We've heard online, but I think different inquiries that have come up from in connecting science and philosophy and taking this ahead very beautifully, and the idea of whether, what is it, the cosmic dance when we walk in a forest and we feel ourselves. And I think this, the last conversation that came about learning from Buddhist philosophy, or whether we are, some of us may be asked whether we are Buddhists, and yes, when we are being good. I think it's a big reminder for many of us who, and I would, very heartfelt thanks to all the venerables, to the scholars here, to the students who gave me this opportunity to sit on chair with you. But I think this is really a conversation towards a connected world, and a connected world where we feel connected with ourselves. And I think that's one of the most important journeys with which Buddha began. And on that note, profound thanks to this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Bharti Puriji, for chairing this session so pleasantly. And I also thank to all our panelists for sharing your view, experience, and your valuable insights on this topic. May I now request Geshe Doji Damdula to kindly offer a khatak and souvenirs to our distinguished chairperson and panelists. A chairperson for today's session, for the last session, Associate Professor Bharti Puriji. Thank you. Mr. Vishnu Vijayanji. Miss Siring Dolkarla. Mr. Ujjwal Patak, Miss Drishti Sherawat, Mr. Stanzen Lotus, Mr. Mohammad Aswad Khan, Mr. Dawat Singh, thank you so much, Keshila. Now, I would like to request our secretary, Mr. Kunjabla, to kindly deliver a thank you note.
So on behalf of Tibet House, New Delhi, I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the speakers and chairpersons and our guest of honor, Professor Geshe Samdillah, and our keynote speaker, Professor Sissiroji, and our chief guest, Professor A.C. Panditji, for accepting our invitation and for sharing your profound knowledge with us. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Venerable Geshe Samdillah for always being there and giving your constant guidance to enhance our capabilities. I would like to thank my colleagues and our volunteers for all the efforts and enthusiasm into putting all this together. Last but not the least, thank you to all the wonderful audience and students for your active participation in the conference. We hope that you found this conference informative and enjoyable, and we hope to see you all again soon in our future conferences and seminars. If you wish to get regular updates of Tibet House programs, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter by sending us an email mentioned on the last page of our program booklet, which you can find in your program kit. You can also visit our website, www.tibethouse.in, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account. That is all for today. Thank you for joining us and have a great weekend. Thank you. So I would like to request everyone to come up on the dais. Let's take a quick group picture. Thank you.